Hello everyone, today we're here to take a look at Azul Duel. This is the brand new Azul, but this one is specifically designed for only 2 players. We'll go over roughly how the game plays and then go through the pros and unfortunately some cons to let you know if it's a game you should be adding to your collection. And just so you're aware, the game was provided to me by Asmodee UK. Like with the other Azuls, you're going to be on your turn taking all of one colour tile from one of the factories that are laid out in the middle. Think of this as a market of tiles that are available to you, and you choose one factory and you take all of one colour. So let's say a tile has 2 red, a black and a yellow. You can take both the reds at the same time and then you'll be adding them to your personal player board onto the left side. This is called your pattern line area, and across the round you're going to be filling up and trying to complete each row of one colour that you'll then be able to move across. In a slight twist from the previous Azuls, there's no central sort of bucket of tiles. Normally in previous ones, once you've taken a colour from a tile, all the rest are just slid into the middle, and that's not the case in Azul Duel. Instead, once you've taken all the tiles of one colour, the remaining tiles are stacked up in the order that you would like onto its sort of moon side. This is then available to be taken on future turns. But much like with you take all of one colour from a tile, if multiple of those moon spaces show the same colour, so light blue, you must take all of the light blue that are visible on top of those stacks when you take it. You can only take from the top of those stacks, so when you are ordering them, it is quite important. You may notice something about the Azul Duel board that's a bit different from previous iterations. Most of it starts blank, and that's because another thing you can do on a turn instead of taking those nice round tiles is actually take a dome piece, they're called, which are actually where you're sliding those tiles across to. So each round you'll be able to take 2 of those pieces and add them in any space that's free onto the right side of your board. Once everyone's taken 2 of those, all of the tiles have run out, and there's even some bonus tiles that appear once a tile has otherwise been used up. Once all of those have been taken, and each player again will only get 2 of those little bonus chips each round, well, that round ends, and any of those completed rows, they're going to slide across. So you basically, let's say you've got 3 yellows, you're going to be able to take one of those yellows and slide it onto a dome piece that's got yellow in that row. So hopefully you've aligned that properly by taking the correct dome piece. At this point you can use bonus chips that you've collected throughout the round or previous rounds as well. These come with normally 2 different colours on them, so maybe it's half blue, half black, and you could say use 2 that have both half black on them to create an entire black token, or you can use 3 for any colour. So the turns go back and forth between each player across the round. They are going to be taking those round tiles and adding them to their pattern lines, hoping to fill them, that are then moving them across onto dome pieces that they have taken, scoring points along the way. If you ever take tiles that you cannot place, because let's say you have 4 out of 5 red and you take 2 red, there's only space for one of those and you want to add it there, well, the other one becomes like a broken tile, and that will score you some minus points at the end of that round, but you can still do it. The game is played out over 5 rounds, all playing very similarly, although in the last round you won't be taking any of those dome pieces, as your board will actually already be full on the right side of those dome pieces, so it's just a final chance to fill them up and score big points. There are also each game going to be a number of bonus scoring tiles in the mix. These range from, say, completing a column, a row, a diagonal, perhaps having 5 different colours of tiles within a row, or maybe even scoring 1 additional point for each tile you've moved across onto the very outside of the dome pieces. At the end, you're going to add up the points you've earned during the game for placing those tiles onto the dome pieces with those bonus points, and you're going to see who wins. And if there's a tie, whoever took the starting player tile in that final round wins. So let's jump straight into the review. Now, this definitely has a little more to it than previous Azuls, certainly compared to the original. I think this is much more sort of on a level of Stained Glass of Sintra, or maybe even the 4th Azul, where there's a little bit more to think about going on here. Firstly, it's not just about taking those tiles and pushing everything into the middle, because what you take then, or what you don't take, sorry, then gets stacked up in an order of your choice. The first few games, that really doesn't matter too much, but you do, after your sort of maybe 3rd or 4th game, start to realise the order I'm stacking these is super important. I need to be clocking what my opponent is going for. Certainly towards the end of the game, when you know they could really do with a couple more blue pieces to finish one of those pattern lines and move that cross to score big. Well, I'm going to make it really hard for you to get the 2 light blue. Yeah, you might be able to spend some bonus chips to do it, but I'm going to make sure you have to do that by ordering those slightly differently, making it harder for you to get the pair of blues that you need at the same time, that sort of thing. Then there's also the fact that you're building half of the board. Half that board, the part on the right, starts pretty blank. There's only one of those pieces put down at this sort of setup, which means each round you're moving 2 dome pieces over onto that board where you want. If you don't do that right, well, you can potentially have a load of stuff to move over, ready to score, and, well, not be able to do it, blocking yourself on some of those pattern lines for the next round, and that can definitely hurt you. And while I think a lot of people are going to look at that and think it's a really cool feature and that you are building that, in the end, I'm not sure about it. It certainly feels to me like it's an additional step that doesn't necessarily add too much, because there are always going to be ways for you to cycle through the deck, even though it costs you some points to do, so you can draw a selection, and chances are if you draw more than 2, maybe 3, so it would cost you a few extra points, you're going to have a tile that allows you to place it and therefore score, because there's some which have like a multicolour symbol, and that multicolour symbol means you can move any tile across onto it. I like that sort of aspect, that there are those tiles, but it just means that often you're guaranteed to do something, and it's just whether you're going to have to spend a couple of points to do it or not. I never had an issue with previous Azuls having their boards just printed, so it was the same board each time, so it's not a replayability thing that it's gaining, it's almost just gaining a little bit of extra stuff. Not necessarily extra complexity, just extra stuff that you've got to do each round that doesn't feel like you're getting much out of. You get more out of the way you take tiles and stack them up compared to pushing them all into a middle pile, but the actual crafting of that board with those dome pieces didn't feel like it added much. Another quite big change is those small little bonus chips. I actually really like these. It feels like you can still be a little mean in terms of blocking your opponent and be like, oh, I'm going to make it hard for you to get those 2 reds or whatever it is that you need. Like I suggested earlier, I like that part of Azul, and there is that sort of here as well. But you do have those bonus chips, those half pieces that you put together to equal like a whole red, a whole dark blue piece, that sort of thing. You have that in your back pocket to use, and at times you're then going to be forced to use them. Maybe forced to spend 3 to be a token rather than 2 that perfectly match together as the 2 halves are the same colour that you need. I really like that aspect, but there is still a little bit of that meanness of Azul of, I'm going to try and make sure you want some reds, well, you're going to have to take 3 even though you only need 1 and get some negatives. It's nowhere near as sort of drastic or as punishing as the original Azul, but it's slightly there. So I can see some people liking those bonus chips because it means it's not quite as mean and you can often do bits that you want because it means you feel like you've done more throughout the course of the game. Other people may not like it because they really love the meanness of Azul and this tones it down. I'm sort of in the middle. So I like the meanness of Azul, but I like the fact that this lets you do a bit more. Another cool addition are those scoring tablets, the sort of bonus objectives that you're doing across the course of the game, trying to get that diagonal in, trying to complete that row. It just gives you a little different draw of it sort of each time of, oh, last time I was trying to get 5 in a row. This time it doesn't matter, as long as I complete that row, I'm going to be scoring some bonus points. And it just means each game does feel a little bit different. In fact, that does more to make the games feel different than how you build out your dome plates on the right hand side. Again, coming back to why do you need to be doing that dome plate stuff when you could just be using these bonus point objectives to make games feel different. And of course, we do have to talk a little bit about production. I think some of the colourings, like the dark blue colouring of the tiles, doesn't perfectly match the colouring on the boards, which is a little odd. But it's still obvious enough which colour is which. But I had otherwise no issue with that, and those tiles are really nice. Being round, they roll around a little bit, but not too much. I think they're, again, very nice. The dome pieces that you're putting onto your boards, they're a decently thick cardboard. It's got a really nice drawstring bag for you to be able to actually pull the tiles out of when you're setting each round up, the tiles that go onto the factory tiles. Again, those factory tiles are nice cardboard, so they're good. The only component then that really lets the game down are the player boards. They're very thin cardboard, and with the rest of the factory pieces, the dome pieces that you're putting on top are this cardboard, it feels really weird that they're just a very thin cardboard next to all these other pieces. So, Azul Duel. It feels like a game that they went into designing the next Azul and then realised partway through, hang on a minute, this is probably going to take too long with multiple players, but if we cut back to 2, we can play and dabble around with that sort of 2-player experience. And I think that makes sense, because it would certainly be too slow with more than 2 players. Even with 2, it's the slowest Azul from my sort of experience. As you are having to take those dome pieces, rotate them, make sure they're in the right place for you, take those tiles, slide them across, it's not quite as just snappy and fluid, at least for your first few games. After about 5, I think you do speed up, but it feels like, yeah, they maybe wanted this to be the next Azul and then realised, yeah, if you've got more than 2 players, it's way too slow. So capping it at that, I think, works. Some of the stuff they've done here, I think, works really well. Personally, I like those bonus chips that allow you to do a little bit more, but don't completely remove the meanness of making it hard for someone to get the colour they want, or giving them too many if they were to take it. That's still just about there, but it's nowhere near as mean as like the original Azul. So some people may not vibe, or may vibe with that more as a result. I don't think placing the dome pieces down to fill your board adds anything other than more stuff to do. So I think that was a slight misstep, but the bonus scoring objectives, I think they are really cool, keeping things fresh. Twisting the experience in some ways to make it super relevant for 2 players. I like the fact that when you take those tiles, you then stack the remaining ones up in the order, so you're impacting the future choices for the rest of that round. I do like that, and realistically, after a few games, you start to actually realise that that can impact things. So overall, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think more often than not, I would just pull Azul off the shelf. Certainly with a brand new player, I'd go to the original Azul first. And obviously, if you've got more than 2 players, that's what you're going to go for. So I think I can still easily recommend the original Azul. And if you absolutely love the series, this one is worth a go, because it is different. It has some different parts of it that I do like. And maybe you'll vibe with parts that I didn't, but hopefully this has let you know for me at least, what I see as pros and cons to let you know if you should be adding Azul Duel to your collection. If you've had a chance to play it, please let me know in the comment section below what you thought of it. Was I right? Was I wrong? Let me know. And until next time, have an Azul-filled good day.